Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today for our fireside chat with Chad Jennings, PhD from Google, and Paula Juliá, VP Solutions at CARTO. I'm Shefali Shah, and I manage strategic partnerships at CARTO. I'm looking forward to discussing top geospatial use cases in FinServ and the exciting technology that we're building with Google that powers them. Before we get started, Chad, Paula, would you mind introducing yourselves to the audience and tell us a little bit more about what you do at Google and CARTO? Chad, let's start with you.
Thanks, and thanks for having me. My name is Chad Jennings. I'm a product manager for data and analytics. I'm also the geospatial analytics lead at Google Cloud. So I feel like I've got the best job in the world.
Hi, everybody. This is Paula Juliá. I'm VP Solutions at CARTO, which means that my team develops custom solutions on top of our platform, or CARTO.
Thank you both for being here today. Chad, let's kick this off with you. We'd love to hear a little bit more about how Google's technology and our partnership together is powering solutions. What are some key challenges that the financial services industry is facing that we're solving for
together? Thanks for the question. I'll start with tech and then head straight to challenges because there's a couple interesting ones. Technically, Google and CARTO have teamed up to align BigQuery, which is our enterprise data warehouse. And we have first-class support for geospatial data types and functions inside the data warehouse. So, for the users out there, like you can run PostGIS queries inside of BigQuery. And CARTO has taken great advantage of that and built a number of functionalities on top of BigQuery to extend the geospatial functionality that you get with the combination. The second part of your question is, what are challenges that are facing the industry? And from a technical point of view, one of the challenges that are facing any geospatial analytics is scale. We'll probably touch on that a little bit later on. But I really wanted to highlight this other notion, which is there's a brand new generation of geospatial questions that are being posed to financial services and retail. And if any of you are followers of Larry Flink's annual letters, this is the BlackRock CEO. In his last letter, he stipulated that climate risk and sustainability are two of the primary risks that portfolio managers or CEOs need to understand. So I think his statement is something like, if you don't understand the climate risk to your investment portfolio, or in retail, if you don't understand the climate risk to every single one of your product SKUs, then you really don't understand the risk in your portfolio. And that, assessing that climate risk has to do with supply chain. It has to do with sourcing. And so if you're a financial services company that's providing services around supply chains or anything in retail, then you've got this new question to start to grapple with. And all of the data that queue into this are geospatially tagged data. What's the climate impact of my supply chain? What's the deforestation impact of my raw materials? These are questions that we're going to have to get a much better grip on in the next year or two.
It sounds like you're talking about a couple of generations of geospatial analysis, the stuff that we're solving for customers right now and the stuff that we're going to have to solve for in the next 2 years. Am I hearing that right?
Yeah. And to be honest, I should dwell a little bit on the stuff we're talking about now, like the traditional cloud geospatial. And to be honest, traditional, this is the stuff that's just newly possible now. A couple of years ago, it wasn't, because the infrastructure didn't exist to really handle the scale. But this is things like, cutting financial transactions by demographics, et cetera. So I'm calling that traditional, even though that's cutting edge right now. The stuff about sustainability and climate risk, that's stuff that's just on the horizon, and it's on the very near and very urgent horizon.
Well, Chad, as head of solutions, let me tell you a real story that we faced a few years ago, trying to build what you were mentioning, a geospatial solution about financial services. We got a call from, let me just share my screen real quick. We got a call from MasterCard As you guys all know, MasterCard collects hundreds and thousands, billions of credit card transactions all over the world. They came to us because they wanted to monetize their data that they were collecting. So it was a real pain to bring this tool together to be able to create something that people can understand where transactions were being made and why. So let me present just a few interest facts that you can extract from the tool. For example, here I'm in Manhattan, in mid Manhattan, and if we want to see where is like the pinnacle of the retail spending in all the New York City, is this southwest corner that we can see in Central Park. If you have ever visited the city, you would know that here we can find the Apple Store, we can find some luxury stores like Chanel, Louis Vuitton, and also Tiffany's. So what we can see here, it's pretty easy and pretty with a good experience to understand that there's a huge spend, one of the most highest spend in all Manhattan, with a very few transactions. So, I mean, the power of the ticket size here is huge. Let me present you another fact that we can extract from this tool. I went back to Christmas 2019, and what we are seeing here are the tracts also about New York, about accommodations and all the transactions that were made by international credit card holders. As you can see, all the midtown and south of the town is quite nice. But here, what I got is exactly the same metric, but a few months later in April 2020. So there were no transactions. It's a blank map. It's incredible, but these are the kind of insights that you can extract from here.
Wow, that's dramatic. Chad, Paula, who are the types of users that you see, using solving for these types of use cases in FinServ? Would love to hear a little bit more about that.
It points to an interesting evolution because, prior to tools like BigQuery and CARTO, to make the map that Paula just showed you, you would be a GIS professional. You would have gone to school like specifically for, to learn how to use these, very capable but highly specialized GIS tools. And so like there's a whole community of trained GIS professionals that are running, in these traditional, I'll call them legacy tools. They're often running on-prem instead of in the cloud. There's there's an up and coming generation of folks who are data scientists and data analysts by training. And then they get challenged like this case, like, well, now I've got a data problem that happens to include geospatial information. It's got polygons, it's got locations. Well, how do I handle that? They never went to school for that, but like they know SQL, they know Python or one of those. And, with the tools that we're creating, like we're giving them the engines that they need to go and do, their work. So we're actually seeing both of these different groups morphing into cloud geospatial scientists and cloud geospatial analysts. And by virtue of moving into the cloud, right, like every analyst, every one of their workloads has 4 basic stages, right? Ingest, storage, compute, analysis, I guess 5, and then viz and sharing. BigQuery does a really good job of scaling ingest, storage, compute. And what CARTO has brought to this is making the viz and sharing A, scalable, and B, a lot easier to use. Anyway, so it's hard to overstate how big a deal it is when you've got all these different pillars in a workload that are now operating at the same scale. And in particular, I'm referring to CARTO's tiler, the BigQuery tiler that CARTO has developed. This is like BigQuery can already scan petabytes of data in a single query. I very much like the alliteration to the Superman language there, like, scales tall buildings or scales tall data sets with a single query. But the BigQuery tiler that CARTO has built really brings visualization to the same level of scale that the core infrastructure of BigQuery has. And that's a huge game changer, right? Now the entire workflow is unblocked because all these pillars operate at the same scale. So I also wanted to, I did want to highlight something here. And Paula, this is for you, right? You know, we talked about like the technology levels, you know, there's BigQuery storage, there's compute, and then we kind of skipped one that I wanted you to dwell on a little bit before we got to visualization, UI, customer dashboards, customer portals, and the BigQuery tiler. But there's a pretty important one in between there. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Chad, thank you. There's a layer in the middle that is all that CARTO provides. It's all the geographical extensions that we can put on top of the infrastructure that you were mentioning before, where you can run all the analytics, all the geospatial analytics that in this kind of industries you need to solve. Like, I can put you some examples that are quite easy to understand. And if you are a bank and you have all your banks located around the world or around the city, and you want to do some analysis, some isochron analysis of where people are coming to your bank office or either to another one from your same brand to ask for money for buying a house. So this kind of analysis that you can do from where people is coming, or this matrix of origin destinations, when you want to understand mobility patterns, this is the piece that you were mentioning, that it's in the middle, that it's all geographical spatial extension that CARTO can provide on top of all the Google technology.
Yeah, and so I'll just tell the people watching, so Google, represented by me, and CARTO, represented by Paula, like, we interact quite a lot to make sure that the geospatial capabilities I put into the core platform are the things that CARTO needs to build those extensions and build those visualization tools so that we can unblock.
Awesome. Thank you both. We're right at time. I'm sure we could talk about the CARTO spatial extension for BigQuery and have a whole nother hour-long session on that. If there are any questions from the audience, please feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address is shefali@carto.com. But I just wanted to thank both Chad and Paula for your time and for being with us here today, and everyone else. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks very much for having me.